Hi, my name is Elitia Hart. I'm a metal art instructor and a mixed media explorer. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you a few different metal tooling techniques using the lovely StencilGirl Products stencil. We'll also briefly touch on how to oxidize your pewter project and use metal colored paints. So pull up a chair and let's start stenciling. The stencils that we'll be using from StencilGirl Products is the Elephant Parade by Natalie Kalbach. It's two beautiful elephant stencils. In fact, it has a little bonus because it has the third detachable elephant stencil that I'll show you how to use in the project. We'll also be using in the 9 by 12 inch range the border stencils designed by Laurie Mika called Pilgrimage to India. Okay, so these are the things that we need to complete this project. Obviously, we've already spoken about our 9 by 12 inch stencils. And then we need to talk about the surfaces for the metal embossing. We have a paper pad, which is usually about 5 pages of recycled paper. I have a smooth, hard surface. In this case, I am using a recycled clipboard. It has a nice smooth surface and won't leave any scratches on the metal. We'll also be using a thin foam mat that you can find at any dollar store or any craft hobby store. As far as the tools go, we have a pencil. You want to have a few pencils on hand that are nice and sharp. A paper pen, which is just a rolled up paper. The French call it a torchon. This is quite a useful tool in metal embossing with stencils. We also have our little stylus here, which is the 10-second Studio Teflon tip tool. It's in their beginner set. Has a Teflon tip tool on one side and a nice sharp stylus on the other side. You'll need a brayer, a rubber roller, and a Sharpie. I often use the water-based permanent marker on the metal as well. You'll need some scissors. You'll need some kind of a lubricant to just put on the paper pen in order to allow it to move over the metal a little bit easier. Some painter's tape. And these two tools are not essential. They're nice to have, and towards the end of the project, I'll show you how to use the ball and cup tool from the 10-second Studio beginner set, and this little beautiful little dotted texture wheel is from the Merc Art beginner set. We'll also need, of course, some metal sheet, and in this case I'm using the 36 gauge metal pewter, and it works beautifully, soft and very easy to tool. You can also use aluminum, which is about 40 gauge. That'll work just as well. We'll be using 2 sheets of the Suk Wang double-sided adhesive tape. I am using some cardstock that I recycled from a cereal box, so you'll need about 25 centimeter to 20 centimeter size of just cardstock, and like I said, I used some recycled cereal box. And for this particular project, to finish it off, the metal will be attached to a wooden artist panel, 25 by 20 centimeters. I got these at the dollar store as well, and I had given it a coat of some gesso just to give it a bit of a tooth, but we'll talk about that later towards the end of the project when we'll finish this off. Okay, so we're going to start by placing our pewter sheet onto the paper pad, and I've marked my metal with my water-based permanent marker, just marking the front, also marking the back, just throughout the tutorial so you can keep track of where we are. So when we want an embossed piece, we are going to place our stencil on the front of the metal, and in this case this is going to be my border at the bottom, and I'm not going to get too creative on placement of the stencil. It's pretty neat as it is, so I'm not going to fill too much with what works. So using my painter's tape, just attaching the stencil to the front of the metal. It's on my paper pad. I'm going to use my pencil, and with the paper pad underneath, I'm going to line inside the stencil to transfer the design. And you want to go just right up to the edges of the stencil and get that beautiful design transferred. And the reason why we're using the paper pad is that it allows the metal to stretch, and when I turn this around, you'll be able to see the design lines on the back of the metal. So I'll just quickly go through this, just again working my way around the design lines within the stencil boundaries, and we'll do the whole strip like that. So to prevent you having to watch through the boring bits, we'll take a little break here, and then we'll come back when I've completed the whole band of the stencil. Okay, so we're almost at the end of this band of our border with the paisley design, and one of the reasons why I like using a pencil is because of the graphite in the pencil. It really helps it to move along over the design really easily, and it gets a little bit messy, but during this process you want to make sure that you keep your pencil nice and sharp. So I'm going to just quickly lift the stencil, and I'm not taking it off, I'm just giving it a quick little look to see whether I transferred all of the design. It looks pretty good. The next step is that we'll turn it around and place it on the hard surface, and from the back you can now see how we transferred the design using the pencil. So I'm making sure that we have our stencil and our metal on the hardboard, and we're now going to use the brayer just as an easy quick step to try and help us push the metal into the design on the front. Ooh, sorry. All right. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll take our little paper stump here. I'm going to take a little bit of Vaseline and just roll my paper pen just a tiny little bit in the Vaseline, and that'll help sort of things move along nicely. So I'm going to start on the side here, and because I can see my design lines, I can just go on top of the design lines and then push the metal with the stencil underneath to the front, and this is how the design will be pushed forward and create an embossed look. So I'm just using my paper stump here, and because I can see where to rub, I'm rubbing where I made those design lines, and this is a pretty fine little design, so I'm gonna probably have a little bit more success when I use a smaller paper stump or my Teflon tip tool. So there comes a point when your paper stump is just not gonna do much more than what we've done here already. So just giving it a little rub, and I hope that you can see the design transferred. The next step is we'll take our Teflon tip tool and get into all those little nooks and crannies, and when I do this I can feel the stencil underneath and the edges of the stencil as I push with the Teflon tip tool contains the design. So you want to really get into all the little details with the Teflon tip tool and get that design nicely pushed out to the front so that it can create an embossed look. So while I'm doing this, we'll take another little break and have you come back when I've completed the whole strip. Okay, so we're almost at the end of this little border, and I'm going to turn it around and have a quick check and see if I got all my all the bits of the design. It looks pretty good, so we're ready to remove the stencil off the metal. And when you do that, be careful not to stretch the metal. So we're just going to gently take the tape off and remove the stencil. So the next part of the stencil that I want to use is I'm going to use this top border here. But I want to have this as a debossing as opposed to an embossing or a raised line that we have here. So in order to get a recessed or a debossing, I'm going to place my stencil at the back of the metal this time and just line it up where I want it, and again just attach it to the metal. And this time we're going to do a little bit of a cheat. We're not going to work quite as hard as we did with the embossing part of it. So once it's on, I'm going to turn it around, place it on the hard surface. Start by giving it a little rub with my finger so I can see where the stencil lies and if it's nice and straight. I'm going to use my brayer and just give it a nice firm little roll, and that'll already start the process of pushing the metal into the recesses of the design. So next step is I'm going to take my paper stump and start rubbing so I can pick up the texture. And what's sometimes nice, if you can spot a part of the stencil, it sort of gives you an idea of where this is going to go and what the different components in the stencil is. And if we're really a little bit lazy, and I'm hoping I'm not shaking the table too much, we can just run our paper stump across the stencil. We have the hardboard underneath, and then just see how much of that design we can transfer without scratching the metal. So we want to make sure that our paper stump is nice and soft and that it's not going to leave any scratch marks on our metal. So I'm going to keep going at this until I have the design nicely transferred. And then I'm going to go the next step again, just like we did on the other side, and I'm going to use my Teflon tip tool and get into all the nooks and crannies of the design. So I'll get started on that. See how much of the design I can transfer with the paper stump, and then I'm going to have to take it a little bit at a time and then transfer the design with the Teflon tip tool. So I'll work on the bottom band for now, just to get us going. And remember that this is the front of the metal, so we're pressing the design into the bottom, so it's going to be, when it's completed, it's going to be nice and flat and not raised like we did our other section here. Okay, so while I'm going to finish this debossing, or sort of almost like an engraving on this part of the border, I'll just get that done, and then we'll come back when I've got the whole process completed. Okay, so we've completed our border here, where we've placed the stencil on the back, attached the stencil to the back, and when you work from the front onto the hardboard, you are debossing the design. So when you look from the back, this is what it looks like, and I did a quick check to see if I caught up with everything. Looks pretty good, and I'm going to gently remove the stencil from the metal. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our little elephant to the design, and Just going to space it out so that there's more or less the same amount of space from where the tail ends and where the trunk starts. And that should be good. And I'm going to attach it on the one side here, and then use my Teflon tip tool and line around the stencil, just getting the outline nicely transferred onto the metal here. You can use your pencil as well. Pretty much what we just want to make sure is that we get the proper outline for our little elephant here. And before I remove my stencil, I'm going to just lift it up, make sure that the lines are nice and prominent and that I didn't miss anything. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Could probably press a little bit harder, but the outline is there, so we're good to go for the next step. So I'll get the little stencil off, and I'll show you what we'll use that for in a minute. The next thing we're going to do is apply our other elephant stencil with all the wonderful texture design here right onto where our outline is. And once I've got that in place, we'll tape him down. And all of this is happening on the front of the metal because I'd like to transfer the design right onto the front, because this part of the stencil we're going to use as a scratching or as an engraving, not so much as pushing it in any particular direction, but just getting the nice design transferred onto the surface of the metal. As I mentioned before, it's always a little bit easier to transfer the actual scratching design when you work on paper pad, because it does allow the metal to stretch a little bit, not too much, and it's easier to transfer the actual design into the metal. So I've placed my stencil over where the outline is. I'm not sure how well you can see this, where the actual outline is, and we're good to go, just transferring the actual design onto the metal, working on my paper pad because that allows it to get a nice firm indentation, and we'll be happy about that when we get to the next step. So I'm just going to go and do all of these. Make sure that your pencil is nice and sharp. If you are using your pencil, you can obviously also use your Teflon tip tool, probably a little bit of a cleaner process. It's not the graphite that keeps sort of messing up the stencil, so you can definitely use your little Teflon tip tool as well if you have it. Okay, so I'm not going to let you watch paint dry here. I'll complete that, but I want to show you the next step in where we'll go with the little stencil mask once I've completed that, and I'll do that off camera and then we'll come back. So we talked about the cardstock, and I mentioned to you that I had used just some cereal box, and I'm going to transfer this little design onto the cereal box. But I want to make sure that my elephant, which is facing this way on the front, when I transfer the design, I need the elephant to go in the opposite direction, and I'll explain why in a moment. So I need my Sharpie, and we'll just do, actually I can use, yeah, I'll just use the Sharpie, and we'll do an outline here. Make sure that it doesn't move on me, so I'll just stick it on the tail, and then I'll catch up with that tail in a second here. So I'll just do our little outline here, and I'll come and fix that tail in a second. With our Sharpie, just go around the mask and give ourselves an outline. Oops. Okay, so once we've got the outline done, I'm going to turn this around. We're going to take our sheet of Sukwang adhesive tape. Got my mask off. I'm a little wasteful here, but to save a bit of time, I'm not going to cut it down exactly to size right now. So I'm just going to put my Sukwang tape, or my double-sided adhesive tape, on the back of my cereal box, and grab my scissors, and we're going to just cut this guy out on the outline. And the beauty of this is the fact that we're cutting with the adhesive tape on the back of the cardstock already, that it'll be an easy fit when we apply it to the back of that little elephant. So again, I'm not going to make you watch me cut this out, so we'll take a little break. I'm going to finish cutting this out. I'm also going to finish embossing onto the surface of this little elephant, and when we come back, we'll just recap and get going. Okay, so I've transferred all these lovely designs in the on the elephant, and when I lift my stencil up, it looks like this. And you notice that I've been working on the paper pad with my Teflon tip tool, and had transferred the design of the on the inside of the elephant, and I can now remove my stencil. Okay, so while you were away, I had also really quickly used this section of the border and had traced that onto the front here on the edges. And I'm now going to just quickly show you how to use the ball and cup tool from the 10-second studio kit. So we'll use our foam mat. I'm going to go from the back on the soft cloth with my ball tool, and where I've made the little circles, I'm going to press down, give it a little swizzle, and you notice I'm working from the back on my foam mat. Give it a little swizzle. I'll just do the other side. Oop, sorry, shaking the table there. Turn it around, put it on the hard surface, and just cup it with the other part of the ball tool. So make sure you're on the hard surface, on the front of the metal, cup the little dome, and just press down, and that instantly refines it and grounds the design. You can also use at the same time the texture wheel from the Merc Art beginner set. I like using the texture wheels on the paper pad. We can work from the back and give ourselves a little dotted border here. I'll just do it on the other side. This time I'll just run it right from the bottom to the top there, and maybe just around the bottom here as well. Working on the paper pad and just rolling my little texture wheel, and then it looks like that from the front. Okay, so now comes a fun part. You remember that we had cut the little elephant out. I have my double-sided adhesive tape on the back, and I am now ready to attach it to the back of my elephant. And what this is going to do is give the elephant a bit of a raised look without us having to use any fillers or wax or anything like that to raise it, give it a little bit of a level higher than the embossing. I'm just going to pull back my adhesive tape, put it over my outline. I'm working from the back. I want to stick it on the back. I can see my outline there. And be careful when you use this double-sided adhesive tape. Once it's down, it's down. Don't try and rip it up. Rather just go with the flow and live with it. So I'm going to turn it around. I'm making sure that I'm on my hardboard. I'm going to use my finger and just go around the edge, and that stretches the metal over the cardstock, and the elephant takes a little shape there. Okay, and once I've done a once around with my finger, I can go with my paper stump, get a little bit closer to that edge and give it a nice rub close to the cardstock, and again your edge is becoming a little bit more crisp. And our little guy is taking some really nice shape here. I can go around one more time if I want to refine it once more with my Teflon tip tool. If I want to get a really nice edge, crisp edge, just be careful. We've worked this metal a few times so that we don't break through the edge there. So that'll give us a nice little neat outline for our elephant. The next thing I'm going to do is, we've got this beautiful design that goes on top of the elephant, and it's lovely as it is, but we also have an opportunity to add a little bit of our own extra design. So this is a good time, if you feel like adding some more details to this, you can use your little sharp stylus, which is on the other side of the Teflon tip tool, and then just add some more details. If you wanted to add some dots or things like that, this would absolutely be a good time to do that. Okay, so our stencil project is complete. We did some embossing, we did some debossing, and then we did some engraving, and we raised it with our cardstock piece from the back. So the next step is, I'm going to show you how to use an oxidization solution onto the pewter. What it does, it gives it an instant age look to it, and then once I've polished it up, we'll start painting it, and then right at the end we'll attach it to the board. So I'm going to set up the patina here, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so I've completed my embossing on my elephant, added a little bit more details. You can certainly get quite carried away adding more details. There's lots of opportunity to put your own stamp on this as well. So I'm going to show you how to do patina, which ages the pewter with the oxidization liquid. So definitely one of the first things that you would need is some gloves, and you'll also need some alcohol swabs, because we need to clean all the grease and any dirt off the metal that might be a resist between the patina and the metal. And so we'll do a nice little cleaning, make sure that we catch all the grease and oil off here. Just make sure I get it nice and clean. Okay, and use some paper towel, give it a quick little wipe, get all the residual oil and Vaseline off, and we should be good to go. Okay, so I use a pewter blackener. It's pretty corrosive stuff. It contains selenious acid and hydrochloric acid, so you definitely don't want it near your metal tools or near your wash basin or anything like that. We throw out a little bit in a container, make sure that you close up the lid of the bottle, and I'm going to take some cotton wool and saturate it and then work from the top to the bottom. Do a quick sweep and you can see that it sort of almost starts reacting immediately. So I do a quick sweep from top to bottom, and then I go back and I do sort of little circular movements and make sure that I cover all of the metal and that everything is going to turn nice and black. So the longer you leave the patina on, the darker the purer sheet will become. One of the things that you need to know about using the oxidization patina is that once we've polished it up, you would have to seal it with a spray lacquer, otherwise it'll tarnish up again and you would have to polish it again as well. Either way, I always seal all my projects because it is tin coated pewter anyway, and we want to make sure that it's tin coated, leaded, and we want to make sure that it's safe if people touch it after it's the project's completed. Okay, so just removing the excess patina with a paper towel, get it sort of almost dry, and then we can start polishing. So I use Never Dull, which is a magic wadding polish. I get it at the automotive section here at Canadian Tire in Canada. I'm sure you can probably get it at any auto shop wherever you are, and all it really is just a beautiful metal polish, and we apply it all over our project and then we start polishing. So you want to obviously focus on the raised areas so that your background stays a little bit darker for some nice contrast, and keep going at this until it sort of creates a black mush, and then you can take the black mush off with your paper towel and then start polishing it up to a shine. So we'll take a little break. I'll continue to polish and clean it off, and we'll be back when I'm done. Okay, so we've finished our polishing of the pewter, and now we can add some paints to it. So I've recently started working with the Ranger Patina for Metal, and it's a beautiful opaque paint that dries very quickly. It is water-based. You've got to work fairly fast with it. It has a little bit of a shaker ball to it, so you always have to make sure that you shake it up well before you start working with it. And they have a beautiful range of colors, and we can certainly, find lots of uses for these. They really work well on the metal. So I'm just going to start a little bit of the painting process just to show you how quick and easy it is, and then I will let you go, and then at the end of the tutorial. I'll show you what I've done completed, and then you'll have some ideas when you work with it. So a little bit of the paint goes a long way. You just need a tiny drop of the paint and a fine paintbrush, and you can just get some beautiful solid colors and keep going. So the paint dries really quickly, so when you open up the bottle, just a little bit on your palette would be great, and it goes a long way. You can always do more than one coat if you like it a little bit more solid. Okay, so I'll keep going with that, and then we'll be back once I've got that whole band of the border completed. Okay, so I did a quick little paint job here with the vintage patina for metal, and I used the moss, the rust, and the marble just to give it a little touch of color here. Of course, if I had a little bit more time, I probably would have added a lot more color, which I'll do at the end of the segment, and then we'll have some of that in the closing shots for this tutorial. Okay, so I want to just quickly show you how to attach it to your board, just using the trusty Sukwang tape again. I'm hoping my project is dry enough here. I've got the back of my metal here. I'll just put it on there in case I attach myself to the table. Attach my double-sided adhesive tape. Turn it around, and we'll just cut off the excess with my X-Acto knife. Try that again. Okay, so now I'm just going to attach my piece to the artist board. Remember, I told you at the beginning of the segment that I painted it with a coat of white gesso, and that just gives it a little bit of tooth and helps with the attachment so that it attaches nicely to the adhesive sheet. So pull the adhesive away, got our tacky side, and we'll just get it onto our board here. And again, just a reminder with this adhesive tape is once it's down, just let it go. So we'll just make sure that I've got it in a good place before I do let it go. Okay, so it's down. I'm going to use my paper stump and just rub it around the edges there. And of course you can use any color for the size of the board. Use my brayer and just make sure that it's nice and okay, so I'll fix that later. Alrighty, so here we go, our project for stencils on metal. We showed you some embossing, some debossing, some engraving, and I hope you learned some new things in metal embossing from this video.